Welcome to Churn Lane. This video is the first of a series where we're going to take a look at building a small servicing shed and refueling point. So one of the buildings that I would like to build is a small diesel servicing shed capable of holding 2 locomotives. I could easily buy one of these online, which is just a standard plastic shed which everyone has on their own layouts. But for me, I'd much rather get the satisfaction of actually building something that actually fits the locomotives that I want to put in. So what I've done here is I've planned out on a piece of A3 paper what it is I'm looking to build. So we'll be using 2mm cardboard and 2mm acrylic, as well as some coloured cardboard, and that will give a rendered finish for the inside of the shed, and some brick papers and some corrugated plastic as well for the exterior. So on here then I have a profile for what I'm expecting to do with thicknesses. That gives me an overall thickness of between 6 to 8 mil, 8 mil by the time I finish. I then have the longest outer wall, and this was actually measured using my class 55 Deltic. And the purpose of that is to actually give me the idea of how long do I need this shed to be. For the height of the shed, what I did was to sit the class 55 on a piece of track and measure, and then basically showing you from this height, what that will give me is a window height starting at about a third up the locomotive, which is ideal for what I need, and then that way we can actually look into the shed as well as see across to the back when there's actually no locomotives in it. So that's a good height, and then that helps me get the overall height of the outside wall. The next wall here is a spacer wall, and that takes the glazing panel. Primarily it will support the glazing but provide support to the rest of the frame in order to support the next wall, which will sit behind this. So that is where the coloured card will come into effect, and that gives the effect of a plastered render. The cutting out phase takes a significant amount of time. Well worth taking your time with this, just to make sure you get it right. You don't want to make any mistakes here. It is very time consuming to do, to cut out all of the windows, but overall I'm really quite pleased with it. You can see it gives quite a profile as well to the bars, and that's going to look quite nice once I paint that up with some acrylic paints. The only painting will take place on these window frame areas, and then the brick and corrugated profile will take over. We'll have a look at that once the model is assembled. The spacer panel then with the glazing panel, you can see how that works. And for the reverse, we also have the rendered panel, which again, 2mm card. Important to note, because I will have roof trusses, I've actually cut a 3mm by 2mm gap in the top of the wall here, and that's just so that I can slot the roof trusses in, which we will again cut out from the 2mm card. That just gives us a location point and stops anything from slipping. So what we're now going to do is go ahead, I'll get these painted up and assembled. Okay, so here the unit's been assembled. You can see I've painted the window frames with some acrylic paint here, and the 3 layers have been glued together. So we have the outer layer. This will take the corrugated metal as well as the brick paper, and that will finish that off quite nicely. We'll do that once the unit gets assembled. You've got the intermediate layer there, and that holds the glazing panels into place. And then on the reverse, you can see I've got what would effectively be a rendered plaster look as well. The grooves are cut in the top, ready to take the roof trusses, and that wall is essentially complete. You can see I've got a small profile here just at the edge, and that's to take the 2 front faces as well. So all of this should go together quite nicely. So that's that side complete. So for the next side then, everything is the same dimensions. The window frame, I've decided to do something a bit different here. So I've gone for the full panels, and then I've gone for a reduced panel size because I'll have a small boffy which goes to the outside of the building. Little window there so that people can see into the depot. So I might do a bit of interior modelling as well in that bothy. That might be the plan, but I'll cross that when I get there. So slightly modified then, but other than that everything else is the same. So we have the window cutouts, we have the intermediate profile to take the glazing sheets, and then we have the rendered finish. All that's left to do is glue this one together. So just to show you quickly how this is working, so here I've stuck the intermediate onto the back of the outer. The glazing panels have also been glued in. You glue around the window frames and then insert the panels onto there, and then you just do one layer of glue and then put the rendered finish onto the top, and then that sandwiches everything together. So here we are, we have the completed side unit, render is attached. Pleased with this. We're now ready to go and figure out the roof trusses. So with the two sides now fully constructed, we now need to figure out the width of the roof truss. So here what I've done is I've allowed for space here of a walkway on this side of the locomotive. The track, the hard standing, which is the same width as the fuel point, which will be outside of the depot. So I'm just using this as the guide. Another track, another walkway, and then the outer wall. All in all, that gives me a space of around about 17.5 centimetres for the roof truss. So I've just made this up, and you can see this just slots in into the side of the walls with the pockets that are created. So with that size in mind, I can now move to construct the roof trusses. So I'll show you that next. Here we have the roof trusses marked out and ready for cutting. Here we go then, after an hour of cutting these out, just gave these a quick paint with some acrylic, burnt umber, and you can see how they slot into the side here. That's a nice secure fit, slightly over the top of the wall, and that's so that the plastic corrugated sheeting for the roof will be able to overhang without any issues. Really quite pleased with this. Next we move on to the front and rear of the building. Using the same method as the side walls, the front and rear wall will also be 3 layers thick. Here I've also got the window frame. You can see, looking through the roof trusses here, everything lines up beautifully. The roof trusses have also been stuck into place, so everything is nice and square here. That's just about ready now to take the roof panelling. Here, the rear wall has also been cut out with the long windows. The brick lane has also been added to the section which will show above the roof. This is just waiting for painting, fitting of the glazing, and then the render wall to be applied as well. Here, the first side has also been covered with the brick overlay. Using Finicard, we also have the recessed brickwork just for a little bit of depth. We also have the corrugated sheet which has been cut to fit around the window frames, and that steps out slightly from the side of profile of the building. You can see the other side of the depot quite nicely through the size of the windows. Here we have the other side wall, also with a similar finish. We also have the section at the back which is awaiting the small side building to be attached. For the roofing base we have one sheet of card 29 centimetres long with cutouts allowing overhang over the side of the building. Large windows so that we can see nicely into the depot as well for the interior detailing to be able to view. This is now ready for glazing and corrugated sheeting. We'll get this fixed onto the roof trusses as well. Here the rear wall is now fully assembled and fixed into position. The front of the unit as well has been completed with brickwork from the card sheet. Pillars have also been created using 2mm cardboard with a brick overlay. This is now ready for the roof to be added. The roof section that you saw earlier has now had the acrylic glazing cut and stuck to the top. This has a 1mm overhang. The corrugated sheet will then be applied so that it is flush with the glazing. The corrugated sheeting has now been applied. Film has been left on the windows just to protect those from any glue. Looking quite nice. Just needs a little bit of profiling here and there. I'm going to fill some of these gaps in, and then really it's on to working with the boffy and finishing off the edges of the brickworks with some capping stones, which I'll make from some cardboard. Coming along quite nicely. The boffy has now been added to the side of the building. The capping stones have also been added to the tops of the walls. This is now the structure completed, and we're ready to proceed to painting. Stay tuned for part 2.